Welcome to Tony McGee's Pro Football Plus. As I told you last week, we have a special show this week. Yes, we had to tape some of the show before the game, but if you'll look at the game this week, I'm speaking of Washington versus Pittsburgh, you'll see who was right. We got special guests this week. We do have a Hall of Fame show. We got Mean Joe Green from Pittsburgh and me, Daryl Green from the Washington team. So we want you to enjoy this show. And just think, next week we're bringing on Doc Walker, and we're bringing on Jeff Bostic, and we'll be taking Geico questions. So enjoy this show. This is the Washington Hall of Fame, Pittsburgh versus Washington show. We know who won. Washington played well. Defense played well. The kicker did well. They beat the best team in the game. Enjoy. Welcome to Tony McGee's Pro Football Plus. Now, I told you last week this would be a special show. This is our Geico Hall of Fame show. You know why? We got 2 Hall of Famers on here and 3 other people that should be Hall of Famers. Let's get to the guests that we have right now. Let's go to the usual. Donna Hopkins is in the house. Welcome back, Hop. And then we got another potential Hall of Famer. You've seen him 2 weeks in a row. Ty Miller, championship chase, television show up in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. He's down here to talk about these Steelers. And then we go to a man, he's the newsman that talks to the world, Mr. Jared Bell, USA Today. Now for our Hall of Famers. If you want to know, one is a defensive lineman, and that's because he made the other guys on the team better. And the guy that's a Hall of Famer that's here from Washington, he played with me, so I don't have to say anymore. He's in the Hall of Fame. It wasn't because he played by himself. Let's talk about him first. Daryl Green. 20 years, fastest man in the NFL, but he never would race me. Welcome to the show, Daryl. I'm still calling you out, man.
Hey, man, look, man, D-ends and D-tackles owe me their lives. I've been carrying them my whole life. So, you know, hey, man, it's just, I feel like that big brother is just carrying his little brother all the time.
Well, what I got to say this is, you know what? We worked together on that. And I just want to know, I get nominated for the Hall of Fame, but I can't get elected. I mean, something's not right here.
Hey, look, man, you're a Hall of Famer to me. It doesn't matter. It's what I feel in my heart for you. It's
the
what
money will be in the mail. Hey, now we got Joe Green. When I was a young guy, because I was about 2 or 3 years old when he was playing, which I'm lying about. He's one of the greatest defensive, and no, he is the greatest defensive tackle that you have seen play. But at the same time, he's a great individual. So when you look him up, and I know a lot of y'all Googling, but a lot of you know him, we talking about one of the best, or the best ever, Joe Green. Welcome to the show, Joe.
Hello, Santa Claus. How are you today? I haven't seen you.
I know, man. I was supposed to be doing this for the pandemic and did for my grandkids, and I messed around and got to liking it now, so I think I'm going to keep it a while. What you guys think?
I like it. I like it.
Okay, let's get started with what you guys think about the Red. Oh, I almost did it. The Washington team, and we're talking about a Pittsburgh team. Now, one thing that I'm going to do, if you saw the last game, you saw the propensity for the Pittsburgh team to be ran on. So, Joe, I might as well start with you right away. You've looked at this defense. You've been on great defenses. You've been on great teams. Tell me what you think about this Pittsburgh defense that you guys have this year.
Oh, I thought you were going to ask me about the Redskins. Oh.
Number one, it costs you $1 every time you say Redskins, so we'll say Washington football. And number two, I'm going to let Donna throw them up under the bus. I want you to tell me something about this Pittsburgh. See, I got my feelings about it. I think you got a great team. I think your defense can go side to side, but I'm really concerned with when people run this defense up the middle, and that's what Washington would try to do.
Well, that's what I'd like to speak to those guys, the Washington team. They are doing it the old school way me and the Little Green used to do. Play good run defense and play good run offense. So they're doing it both ways, and they're going back to the old school, and that gives them a chance.
Yeah.
Is this team as good as its record?
Well, you are what you're talking about, the 11-0 Pittsburgh Steelers. You have to play the schedule. And at this point in time, they're playing the schedule. And we'll see how this thing bodes at the end of the year. I know that the most important thing for those guys is the last game that's going to be played. That is where their focus and attention is. It started that way, and it'll probably end that way. And I do know that as you go through the season, you grow, you learn, and that's what the season is about. It's a marathon. On the teams that I was a part of that won, I know that we got better as time went on. Notwithstanding some slip-ups, but we did get better, and hopefully this team will improve on the journey.
Well, you know that's the general manager ringing the bell, coming to get you so you can play, man. So go on, get your cleats on. Let me ask Ty. A little information. You look at these guys, Ty, and we had this conversation on the last show. Now, for you fans, you know that we're taping this a little bit before the game because we do not know because of the pandemic when this will be played. But at the same time, you can see what we're doing is looking at these teams and trying to really look at what the strengths and the weaknesses are and how they match up against either. Ty, you know, I said before, I felt that they could be ran on. The last game that we were able to see until the next one they play, they were ran on, even if it were by quarterback. I like this Pittsburgh team, but we ask you once again, is Big Ben the one reason that they are where they are, other than they do have a good team, but is he that main reason?
Yeah, I think there's no doubt that Big Ben is the big difference for this team this year, because last year, of course, they went 8-8, and this year they're 11-0. But you asked Joe Green whether or not this is a very good team. I think it is a very good team. It's not a great team because there are some deficiencies that are going to come up on defense within the next couple of weeks, primarily due to the absence of Bud Dupree now with that major knee injury. But one thing about the team that happened this weekend, Tony, when they had that struggle against Baltimore, you know, a lot of people said, okay, Mike Tomlin jumped on his team. It was the ideal time for them to have a struggle without a win, because now Tomlin gets a chance to reset the button to let these guys know you're not as good as that record may indicate. And you have to play better because, like Mr. Green indicated, you could be one and done on that last game. And that's what they may be facing once they get into the playoffs.
Wait a minute, you got a show in Pittsburgh, and you a Pittsburgh kind of fan, even though I tell everybody you doubt it. And you never called me Mr. McGee. I mean, why is it Mr. Green? You didn't call Daryl Green Mr. Green the other day.
He's talking about me. He's talking about me.
Oh, he was talking about you. Oh, okay. My bad.
I live in the same city with this guy.
He's talking about me.
My bad. Jared, you went to the game last week, and for you fans, the game may have been played. We're not saying we got it all right, but when you saw that game and you've seen the Washington team play, give me what matchup you think plays in the favor of the Washington team, and then the one that plays in favor of the Pittsburgh team.
You've been talking about the running game and the run defense. So I think that's one area. Washington's defensive line has, really shown to be something to look at for the foundation of this future. And me and Joe can tell you about what a good defensive line will do for you. But here's the thing that I left that game when they played Baltimore, because Baltimore had a shot. And, they kept the game close in the first half. They mismanaged the situation at the goal line just before halftime when they could have taken a lead. But just think about that. Who would have thought that Baltimore, with 17 players on the COVID list, would even have a chance to win the game. And that's what we've seen from the Steelers team this year. Now, give them credit. Like Joe said, you are what your record says you are. They've won the games. They have a lot of resilience. They've got veteran poise, and they can get through tough times. But they've been tested. They got tested twice by Baltimore. They almost blew it at Tennessee. Dallas gave them a handful, and they had to come back to win that game. So even though they are undefeated, they have not been dominant. And I think that's the thing that Mike Tomlin was really trying to get across with his post-game messages the other day, where he talked about the drop passes in the red zone, the big plays given up by defense. You know, Baltimore scored like a 70-yard touchdown in the fourth quarter that, you know, gave them a prayer towards the end. So, you know, they weren't able to run the ball effectively. Now, James Conner on the COVID list. So they've got a lot of things that can go wrong on any given day that can get them beat because they are not dominant. So Washington's got a chance. You know, like I said, Dallas gave them a run for the money. So we'll see.
D Green, they're always talking about Washington defensive backs are starting to play better and everything, but at the same time, they're saying the Pittsburgh receivers are just developing and they really don't know if Juju is number one or whom will be number one in this. Do you see Washington's receivers, if this game, after this game is over, would it have been Washington's receivers stood up, or did those receivers that they're looking for in Pittsburgh finally start to be the group that they think they could be?
Well, Washington,
defensive backs.
Everything is on Washington, the team. Y'all can say whatever y'all want to say. Pittsburgh's not dominant, and that team almost beat them, and that team almost beat them. They're 11-0. You can say that all day. The onus is on us. Our secondary has got to cover those guys. Juju is a veteran. Their quarterback is a future Hall of Famer, and that's just the way it is. These guys are going to be successful every week if you don't.
We lost Daryl for a minute. I guess maybe he wasn't telling us the truth. He cut himself off real quick there. So let's go to somebody else who can throw him under the bus better than he can. Tell me about those defensive backs, Donna. Do you think? And he was saying, and he had a great point. They're 11-0, and we know we can't ask Joe because he's our homer here for the Pittsburgh, and he's supposed to be. He got a lot of rings on his fingers. I'm still looking for that one for the thumb. But at the same time, tell me what you see will be the deciding of what was. Let's act like this game is over. What was the deciding factor in this game? Was it the defensive backs? Was it the receiver? Was it the running game of what pertaining to the Washington team in Pittsburgh?
Hey, Tony, I think Daryl hit it on the head. It's not about what Pittsburgh would do and what they can do. And like he said, their record is a telltale 11-0, but it's the Washington football team and what team shows up against Pittsburgh. Now, you look at Alex Smith. He's been the key in the last 2 weeks that has improved that offense. And we talk about a running game where Pittsburgh, that's the weakness right there, where Washington should be able to expose that defense is if they can get their running game going. The last 2 games that they won, they got the running game going. Antonio Gibson has been the key in that backfield, but it's the mixture of the backs that they've got back there. And they pretty much have said, we're going to run the ball and then we're going to go to the passing game. But it's Alex Smith, Tony, that has really got the offense going in the right direction. And we know that Pittsburgh's got one of the top defense as far as pass defense. So Terry McLaurin and some of those guys are going to have to really work. And then the Washington's front, we finally, Tony, said that, will the Washington front show up from week to week? And they have in the last 2 games. So I think is what they're doing. Defensive front is going to be the key also in that Pittsburgh game.
I tell you what, just add this, Tony, that Lil Scott Turner, obviously we knew him as a kid when he was with Norv, his dad. I'm gonna give the guy credit. You know, sometimes I get disappointed that some of these African Americans don't get up the ladder as quick as some of these other kids, but Scott Turner deserves it. He's doing it, look like. But to Donna's point is that Alex Smith is benefiting from Turner running the ball. I don't think the problem, Alex Smith has to have them help him. So you're giving him the credit, but it really is the offensive plays and the running game that makes life a lot easier for him. Remember when he first started back in that first game, he couldn't do anything because he had to throw. But now they've got a little bit of a running game, so you got to give it to the offensive coordinators calling the plays that make Alex look better and look good. And so I still, as I was going to say, I apologize for falling out, is that the Pittsburgh Steelers, they're 11-0. We got to try to continue to win. We're being the best of the worst league. We won 4 out of 11 games, and that's winning in our league. So we've got to continue to be the best of the losers in the NFC East. And that's just every week get better and better and better so that we can at least represent our league. But Pittsburgh is going to be a handful for anybody. I don't care what you say, how it happened. Did they knock him out? Did they go to distance? Was it a technical knockout? It doesn't matter. They're winning, and they won every game. I don't know how do you argue that? You can say whatever you want to say. They won every game. I don't care how they won it.
And so when we come back, we have to take a break. And I'm sorry to jump in there on you, Dale, because I'm 0-1. I'm 0-1 with commercials. I'm 2 minutes over, so I'm gonna have to cut one of y'all doing timeout. So fans, come back and see which one had to fall under the axe. We'll be back in a minute. Dale Green, you got to leave now, man. You can't stay in office after you voted. Oh, I'm sorry. We're going to keep Dale Green here. We're not going to vote him. He already asked for a recount, so we'll let him do the rest of the show with. But let's start talking about, we've talked about the Washington, the way they look. We've talked about what we think the strengths are of the defense on both teams or how Pittsburgh look. But Joe, you're a defensive man, and you know that defense really, a lot of times, and most of the time, that's what wins your Super Bowl. What do you see with this team when they do have a problem, even though they've won 11 games or more? What do you see a big problem when you see them having problems?
Well, the problems that we've been having is that you have to take care of your business. Each position, each player has to take care of his own business. Darryl knows that when you get nose trouble, you're going to have a problem at your position. Well, let me say this. Number 90 is best at putting his hands on the ground, defending the run, and rushing the passer, not covering the slot back all the way down the field.
Mm-hmm.
Our run defense is when we have linebackers playing linebacker and not safeties playing linebacker. When number 24 for the Washington team is in the backfield, we shouldn't have little guys playing middle linebacker. Now we have to know when he's going to be in the game. There's another guy that's running the ball well too. I don't remember his name or his number, but they have 2 guys that run the ball very well with the Washington team. Now, the quarterback has done a great job, I think, but he's going to have to beat us throwing the football, not the guys running the football. I'm not going to let those guys beat us.
Ty Miller?
I'm glad he said that because, again, Washington, they look great recently, but they beat twice. They beat the Bengals. They beat the Eagles. And they have somewhat of a running game, but they're not going to beat the Steelers running that ball consistently throughout the whole game. It's not going to happen. At some point, they're gonna have to deal with the blitz. They're gonna have to deal with Pittsburgh's secondary on the back end. Alex Smith, I just don't think can beat this team like a lot of people think at this point. There's a lot of confidence in Washington right now, but I highly doubt if that could happen here. Another factor in this game, I don't know how much you former players factor in the human factor, that for this game is a playoff game for both teams. The Skins are the Washington team is trying to stay in it. Pittsburgh can win.
Too late, Ty. Leave your money on the table, bro.
Pittsburgh show up. Whether you're current or you're a former player, you have to show up. Isn't that right there? You got to show up to play.
Yeah.
They will show up. Being that it's a playoff game for both teams. Pittsburgh can clinch a playoff spot, and they can clinch the North if Cleveland loses. So there's a lot at stake, not just for the Washington team, but also for the Steelers.
Donna,
Yes,
what
it
do you-
is.
Yeah, Tony, but Ty was talking about the Pittsburgh defense, and we're looking at, I think, the Washington's offensive line that has played pretty good at you know, in the last few games too, with Morgan Moses moving over to the left side, which is kind of like more protection for Alex Smith. I think that the coaching staff here in Washington is a veteran coaching staff with Ron Rivera, and I think that's going to be the key also in what game is called. And they know that they have to be able to protect Alex Smith because they know that the Pittsburgh defense is going to be sending blitz and putting a lot of pressure up there. So what they have to do is really be able to mix it up a little bit in protecting Alex Smith, because we know that he can't move like he did before, but it's just going to have to be a smart coach game on the Washington side too. But I think that this Washington football team is primed to beat the Steelers if they put all the pieces together.
Okay, fans, I want you to mark that, put your recorders on, because she will not hold up to that next week. But we want to make sure that you remember Donna said that. So with that being said, Jared, just in case this game has been played and the pandemic didn't stop it, as I look around the league and take example last week, the game where Pittsburgh played Baltimore team, on both teams, I started to see cracks in the armor. When I look at the Kansas City team, I'm starting to see cracks in the armor. When I look down at Tampa Bay, which is loaded, I'm starting to see cracks in the armor. Are we now starting to see condition-wise, pandemic-wise, and stress-wise, things that will hurt a lot of teams going down the stretch? And you see a lot of them, and I think you can probably see the same thing. A lot of these teams they say are great are starting to crack right now as well.
Well, that's a good point, because we want to see how this pandemic affects the entire season, because every season without a pandemic, last year, the year before, back when Joe played, I mean, you always wanted a complete football team. You want to be able to stop the run. You want to be able to run when you need to. You want to be able to put up points, come from behind, all of these things. You always look for the complete teams when you talk about making a run to the Super Bowl. Now, you throw the pandemic into it, and you get this situation where some teams are hurt more than others by positive COVID tests, players going on the list, and just all sorts of disruptions. And I'm not even talking about the scheduling, but just the day-to-day operation. And so some of that, you know, you talk to the experts and it's like, yeah, you do everything you can to mitigate and to try to prevent these things. Sometimes things, you talk about slipping through the cracks. Sometimes somebody gets into the building and they've got the virus, and then all of a sudden you have a situation. That's the big unknown thing here. But I look at a couple of teams that have actually been at the top of the league, and they haven't had a lot of COVID cases. And I'm talking about New Orleans. Seattle hasn't had a single positive all season. And then you mentioned Kansas City. They've had a couple cases here and there, but nothing that has really kind of, you know, thrown a real wrench into what they're doing. And Pittsburgh, by the way, just now starting to have a few cases, you know, multiple cases. They had Connor out, Stephon Tuitt out last week. So that's the X factor right now, that it's kind of difficult for me to sit here right now and predict, because so much of this virus has been unpredictable. But if you know, I think that's another factor. Like I said, when you get to January, you know, how healthy are you? Not just from a football standpoint, but you know, from a virus standpoint.
And you know that's so.
Tony, let me add something to what he's saying.
Yes.
Joe Gibbs and Joe Green, we can all identify with this. The fatigue of success can create a problem, and the fatigue of failure. Finger pointing that we're a losing team, finger pointing that we're a winning team, but I'm not getting the ball. That's going to be a character. The fatigue of the virus is the same fatigue of success or the same fatigue of failure, of losing. You're a losing team, we're pointing fingers. We're a winning team, we're pointing fingers. I'm not getting the ball as much. But I think it's the same kind of fatigue. The key will be is the leadership. And when you look at Tomlin, you look at the head coach of Kansas City, you look at the head coach at New Orleans, these teams And actually, even with our team, I think that these coaches are proven leaders. They were champions in their own right in their game, in their league when they played. So the fatigue of football is going to come to play. You just add but fatigue is anyway, even without the pandemic, the fatigue of wax on, wax off, wax on, wax off, wax on, wax off. And you're going to see, we'll find out, and maybe this is that week that Pittsburgh and other teams, you find out how the fatigue of the league, of the season, whether it be the pandemic or just we're losers or just we're winners, we'll find out what that really is. Joe, I'd like to hear Joe Green talk about that too, that whole idea of the fatigue of being successful and everybody's expecting a certain thing of you in Pittsburgh.
I agree, Daryl. I agree about the leadership at the top. As I said earlier, that team develops over the course of the season and the type of games and the situations that they're involved in. Do we fall off or do we get stronger? Now, Daryl knows and I know, and so do you, Tony, the guys that's gonna fall off, the guys that's gonna break the circle that we have of all of the healthy guys in our family, and the ones that's gonna just gotta go out, just gotta mix it up. We know those guys. And that's why the leadership has to be in the locker room. Somebody in that locker room has to tell those guys, I don't want to play with you if you're going to be that way. I don't want to play with you. Daryl is right. When you're winning, you got guys saying they're not playing right. I'm not getting the ball enough. I'm in the wrong position. And when you're losing, everybody's got an idea of how to win. So
Yep.
Exactly. I agree with that.
Yep.
Together, you have to control.
And you know what's really interesting about this whole thing is this is something that no one has control over, but it has control over you. But at the same time, you're exactly right. You're starting to look at the injuries. You're starting to look at the thought process. And then when you hear about teams as a Seattle that have had no positive cases, and you say, well, what are they doing that's so different? Well, you see they're a disciplined team. And I can tell you guys, for the last 27 years, I've been a uniform inspector for the NFL. And one thing that I started to notice, the teams with the uniform violation that had the most violations were the teams that were losing. The teams that were in the Super Bowl, you look at them, they have very few violations. Same thing with this. You, as we have in life, have to govern yourself accordingly pertaining to what's going on now. And that's in football, that's in everyday life, that's in everything you do. So what they have to do right now, you can see teams aren't adjusting. But now it's starting to wear, as you said, D. Green, you see teams that were doing good, they starting to fall off. So now really, if we were to talk about who or what teams will be in the Super Bowl, which we'll talk about that in the next segment, it's going to be hard to call because all we got to know is the two teams standing at the end of being the Super Bowl. Same thing as this commercial. We going on the cut line again. Ty, you better watch out. I ain't heard much from you. We don't want new personnel in that seat. We'll be back in a minute. We'll be back. Look out, Ty. We'll be back in a moment. You know, we've been trying to kick it around, and the one thing we do on this show is you give you information, but we also want everybody to have a say on what they're going to say. We're talking a little bit about the league, but I'm going to go to a whole different subject now. How many of you are finished with your Christmas shopping? That was a good one. No one's saying anything.
Well, let me start and say this. I met my wife on Christmas Eve, my rookie year. That's the only day I ever shop. And she's the only one I ever buy for. So now I get mine done. I don't shop for one person.
I like that. Yeah. You know what? Let me put that down in my notes.
No, you can't do that. No, you can't do that.
Me.
No, Tony, because he had a reason why he shop on Christmas Eve.
Yeah. You can't do that. Novina's sitting right there. You better have her stuff already.
Jared, you done with your shopping, man?
No, I haven't even started. I haven't even started the list yet. Okay, but I have picked up a couple things, along the way. But yeah, I got work to do. But you know what? This is not going to be a typical spend fest for me because I got 2 kids in college. Okay, and a lot of stuff flowing. So it's not about the gifts and the material things anyway. It's all about the spirit. And this year, more so than any year, so appreciative of health and good health. And the big thing for me, I'll just add this, I'm trying to decide whether or not I'm going to go to Detroit to see my mom, who's 92, for Christmas. I've been up there a couple times over the past few months, but with the virus cases spiking, it may be a situation where I just sit it out in terms of going up there to visit like I normally do and come back around in a few weeks.
Hey, Tony, you know what? I tried to do Christmas shopping, but I tried to shop for somebody else, but I ended up just getting the stuff for myself still, because when I look at the boatload of my family, it's just too big, Tony. I mean, it's just too many to buy for. So I just keep it simple. Just get for myself.
Well, one thing, you make sure you got the right things and you got it for yourself. T, what? I mean, I saw that what was it, $200,000 car that was in your driveway? Was that a present? I don't know. We don't give those kind of presents at Christmas. Was that a Christmas present for you or what?
Yeah, that was the next door neighbor's car. But I actually went to my basement shopping this year, Tony, because I have a 5-year-old granddaughter, and she happens to be in Power Rangers, right? Into Power Rangers up in Boston. But my son, when he was a kid here in Pittsburgh, he loved Power Rangers. So I never threw away any of his toys. So we have like Power Rangers in pristine condition that we're actually going to ship to Boston. And she's going to love these things because not only do I have the toys, but I also have his bed sheets. I also have his pillowcases, everything from when he was a kid. The other thing too is I'm also sending her Pittsburgh Steeler mask for COVID mask for the 5-year-old daughter I found here. Because growing up here in Pittsburgh, my son, who's in Boston, he's a diehard Steeler fan. Try as I must, I try to turn him into a Dallas fan. Like I grew up in Alabama as a Dallas fan, but he's a diehard Steelers fan. So everything he does is about the Pittsburgh Steelers. And so I'm sending them the coverings that they wear on TV and everything about the Steelers. I also got a question for Joe Green. How do you think you would look in those black on black color rush uniforms they wore last Monday?
I thought about that, and my mind went back to my second year when we went all white. I didn't like those solid colors. I liked it when we were black and gold, top and bottom. Didn't like all the solid colors, the all white or the all black.
But you would look a lot slimmer if you had them on.
Oh, wait a minute. What you trying to say here? Wait a minute. Now remember, you live in Pittsburgh. Your show is in Pittsburgh. You already said you're a Dallas fan. So Joe waiting to see you after this show. Before I go there, Joe, I see you got your tree up, man. When did you took your time and put it up one afternoon, or what happened there?
Oh, Tony, that is a great question. Let me tell you, that tree has been up since November 1st. She starts that every year at November 1st of putting that tree together and doing all the Christmas decorations. She's coming from the area where Mr. Green grew up, Darryl Green. They do that down in Houston like that.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
Guys, and I just wanted to do something different because all we've had is negative information and everything. And right now, you can just tell by not just the people around you, but the people you see. Everyone is looking for a little happiness right now, and we can gain that if we do it together. And that's even when we talk in football, we can talk about other things that's going on. Because right now, it's a lot of things going on in this world. It's a lot more important than these football games. With that being said, you go back to the teams now. What would these teams, and let's start looking at teams that's going to the Super Bowl. Let's look at Tampa Bay, for instance. What would they want for a Christmas present to get them over if they can get to the Super Bowl? Because right now, I just don't think they have everything they need. The one thing I think they need, and everybody chime in, I think they need more continuity and they need more practice time.
Yeah, chemistry.
They need
Hey,
harmony.
Derek, could you talk about Bruce Arians and Tom Brady and that relationship right there? Because it seems to be some cracks in the armor with that relationship for Tampa Bay.
Yeah, it's interesting too, because even I was at their first game in New Orleans and they lost, and Bruce Arians, just called it right out and said, bad decision by the quarterback on the interception. And that's kind of Bruce's style. As media people, we love him because he'll say what's on his mind. You may not always agree with it. And Tom Brady, after that, was actually, pretty diplomatic, saying, hey, he's the coach, I'm the player. So I think it kind of bounces off Brady. He dealt with Belichick, who, has a reputation of calling out anybody and everybody in front of the team, not so much in public with Belichick, but behind closed doors. But I think the real crux of the issue, the way I see it, because a lot of the media stuff and the talk is, that kind of goes away. It's how Tom Brady fits into the Bruce Arians offense and how they kind of mesh the best things that Brady has done throughout his career, which is getting the ball out quick, a lot of short passes and allowing the receivers to make the plays, versus Bruce Arians' offense that really takes a lot of shots down the field, which, you have to have. You've got the weapons, no doubt about that, but you've got to have the protection, got to have the accuracy and all of that. And that's where they've really misfired. Going into the game last week, I think Brady had only completed like 2 out of his last 25 passes that were, 20, 30 yards downfield. That's a horrible percentage, but that's what they're asking him to do. And I just think that that's kind of one of the issues that they've had in Tampa. So they still need that chemistry and the continuity, as Tony alluded to.
Okay, I got 2 minutes left. That was that we looking at the NFC side. Somebody tell me, what does Kansas City, who everybody is saying right now they are the class of the AFC, what would they wish for Christmas? What present would they want under the tree to take them to another Super Bowl? Anybody?
I think a little
Home field advantage. Just home field advantage.
What'd you say, D?
Just home field advantage. It's hard to win over there.
Donna?
I just think their defense could be a little better because they've got everything clicking on the offensive side of the ball.
Is
there really home field advantage this year with no fans?
See, that's exactly, and I'm kind of feeling that too. Even though we hear all that noise, I think about this is a glorified practice.
It's manufactured sound.
I don't think you throw out home field advantage just because there's no fans. There's still something about the familiarity of the place. I don't think you just 100% throw that out. I really don't. I don't think so.
Yeah,
let's jump down to NFC.
There's another factor too. Indoor team versus an outdoor team. So there are definitely some other components besides just the noise. But yeah, the noise in the Superdome and in Seattle and in Kansas City, yeah, you kind of missed that this year.
Yeah, so when we come back, we'll talk about that Seattle, because that seems to be one of the biggest keys to their success, and they're still being successful, but barely, because they don't have the fans. And without the fans, you don't have the glory. So we'll be back in a minute to talk about that. I don't know why these guys are so quiet about it, because you know what? I don't feel like I got fans here on this show. I don't hear no cheering. Huh? We'll be back in a moment. Welcome back to the show. And we just having a little fun with this show. And everybody was saying, well, you're not letting Joe Green talk a lot. Well, you know what? We know that he knows a lot about winning. He knows a lot about Super Bowl. He knows a lot about all this. But at the same time, we let these other guys talk. So now we need to talk to Joe Green. Hey, Joe, you've been on a lot of Super Bowl teams and everything. Darryl Green been on a lot of them. You had a question for Joe, Darryl.
Yeah, I grew up in Houston, where Joe's wife and I grew up, same area. And
wait a minute, you just said that. I mean, Joe said that you didn't use E on the end. If you grew up in Houston and you didn't use an E on the end of your name, but you know his wife, have you ever thought about putting E on the end of your name, Mr. Green?
Have I thought about it? Well, when I was in kindergarten, you spelled red R-E-D, blue B-L-U-E, and you spelled green G-R-E-E-N. So I'm just going by what the teachers told me. That's how you spell green, man.
With that being said, you got a question for Mr. Greene.
Yeah. You know, how was it taking on Earl Campbell, man? Talk to me about Earl, man. That's our boy. I want to know about Earl.
It was not fun. It was not fun. I go back when during midseason we were 8-0. That came up again this year when the current team was 8-0.
Yeah.
And we were playing the Houston All Earl Campbell's rookie year Monday Night Football in Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
And we played new defense. Coach got enthralled with the 30 defense, the 3-man front. We were a 4-man front. Earl had 181 yards in that game on Monday night, 182, and he wore out our deep safety because he was the guy that was making all the tackles. He told us that Earl was killing him. And let me tell you, after that ball game, our defensive line coach went into the head coach's office and drew up that defense and said, take a good look at it because this is the last time you're going to see it. And it was. We never played that.
Wow. Wow. You know, Earl's one of my favorite guys, man. But Joe is too, of course. But I just love to hear those stories, man. That's crazy. I hadn't even heard Joe tell that one before. Wow.
Well, you know, I got an Earl Campbell story. We played him and we were playing Houston when I was with New England, and we was one of the better defensive lines then. And Earl Campbell came in, and for all you fans that do not know, his thighs were 26 to 28 inches in circumference. And that means that every time you hit one of those, it was like hitting a tree. And I played this play perfectly well. I hit my man, threw him off, flowed down the line, hit Earl Campbell, and accidentally hit my head on his thigh. This was the first quarter. The next thing I knew, the third quarter, they were saying, "You okay?" And I'm not telling you a lie on that one. I lost the whole rest of that game, but playing against that guy was the kind that you kind of saw guys on film on Monday, Joe. You can tell us about it in Daryl. You saw guys kind of avoiding the hits on that. Whenever Earl ran through there, guys saw someone else to run into it rather than try to tackle him.
Yeah, they go into that thinking, what do I want to do with this guy? After that, he's run over you or run back.
Now, I know we kind of got off the subject. Let's get back to home field.
But Tony, that's called a business decision, right?
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, you're exactly right. How long do you want to work?
Exactly. You got that right now going on with Derrick Henry, the Titans running back. I mean, who is the closest thing to Earl Campbell in today's game?
Yeah.
Well, let's back up. I'm glad you brought that up. Is that Titan team for real? Because it seems like when he runs really well, they got a sufficient defense. They found the quarterback they want. Is that Titan team a real threat?
It is in this time of year when running the football and playing tough defense can win you games. We saw Tennessee last year go all the way to the AFC Championship game. Now they couldn't handle Kansas City in the end, but I think, you're hitting it at the right time. And even Cleveland with their 2 running backs, I think there's something to be said. We always talk about this being a passing league. Well, when you get to December and January, it's crazy that everybody wants a good running back, right?
Hey, Jared, Cleveland better be able to run the ball because Baker Mayfield, this has not been his year. But in switching gears a little bit, Tony, talk about Seattle, because Seattle, it seems to be that team emerging right now. They just got Gordon back, Josh Gordon back. He'll be able to play the last 2 games. So what will him being back do for that Seattle team, because he's going to add to their passing game. Russell Wilson has played well the last stretch of this season so far, but Seattle is the team that's sneaking up right now.
We're looking at Seattle, and what I'm going to have to do, fans, is we have a couple of individuals that are high priority individuals that are being requested on shows with the the new president and everyone, so we'll have to let them go. I'm speaking to Daryl Green and Jared Bell. We thank you guys for being on. Tell the president we said hello, and the president-elect.
Yeah,
President,
certainly will. I certainly will. Good regards.
Tell him we don't believe in recounts either, but we thank you guys for being there, and those checks that are going to bounce will be in the mail sometime. But we want you guys to come back and enjoy your holidays. And one thing I want to tell you, D and Jared, both of you know, you did a great job, but always be safe, man. And always just love each other and love your family, man. And we're glad y'all here. Fans, we'll be back in a minute to talk about Seattle. Donna haven't had a chance to put tread marks on anybody's back, so we're going to give her a shot at that when we come back. You guys be safe. We'll be back.
All right, T.
Well, welcome back. And as you know, as we said, this game have not been played yet. By the time you see this, it would have been played. And we're looking at the Washington team winning this game. I know that Joe Green would not believe that, but at the same time, I just feel that for a reason. But Joe, as you look around the league and you look around at everything, I do think your team, and I'm joking about a lot of things, but I think your team is the best team right now. But as I said, I'm concerned with the running. And I'm also just concerned that if they have to go, the running against them as well as their running game. I'm not really just sold on their running game yet.
Tony, I would agree to an extent. What we've done on defense against the run, we can fix that, and that will be fixed. We have the leadership from top to bottom to get that done. The running game offensively is a little different. We haven't been able to replace completely the guy we lost a couple of years ago. And the offensive line has not been able to block for the run as well as they have in the past. And that makes a little bit of a difference. But when we have a time to research what we've done up to this point, I think we will get better. We will have to get better in order to go the distance running the football. I think we have to get better, both sides, stopping the run and running the football.
Ty?
Tony, I think one of the things about the Steelers team this year, it is a passing team more than a running team. So the desire to be a running team at this point, that might be something that they may want to pass on. They will need to run instead of the pass. But if you look at the Patriots teams where Tom Brady did a lot of dinking and dunking out of the backfield, there are some similarities, but a little bit different. Ben gets the ball out now, 1, 2, 3 snap. The best plays on the Steeler offense right now from the passing game are when the ball comes out really quick. He doesn't hold on to the ball a whole lot like he used to. So I think that's what this offense is now. They let the ball go to Deontay Johnson or Claypool on a jet sweep. They do really quick passing plays or different types of running plays to make up for the lack of productive running from the eye or from the backfield. So I think that's one of the biggest differences with this team this year is, and I think you will see more as time goes on because they don't have that back this year that can do what Le'Veon Bell did in the past.
I agree with up to this point, that's what we've done. But as we get closer to the playoffs and in the playoffs, the game is going to have to change. You have to be able to run the football at some point in time. At some point in time, you have to be able to run it. Now, I agree with you. I'm happy that they do get the ball out, that Ben gets the ball out quick. That's what the guy down in Tampa should be doing. But anyway, he stands up and he's healthy. We can't win without Ben. So Ben getting rid of the ball quick is a good thing because that means that he's going to be standing up at the end of the season. And Ben can make some really, really good throws. He can make all the throws. But the short pass game is where we are right now. But nevertheless, for us to go the distance, we're going to have to be able to run the football.
And I agree with that. And that's another shortness that the Washington team has.
Right now, currently.
Didn't hear the last part of what you said, but Donna, that's a problem that the Washington team seems to have had throughout this year and years prior to this. They do not have as strong a running game as they have in the past. And they seem to show up now. I do say in one of the last games that they played, they did have somewhat of a running game. Is that the one that they will have during the rest of the year to give them the opportunity to maybe get to the playoffs?
Tony, you never know about this Washington team because they ran the ball, like you said, in those 2 wins that they had back to back. But will they commit to the run when they get in trouble? If they get behind, they're not going to run the ball. And that's been their Achilles heel all season long, is that they don't start strong in games. Against Pittsburgh, they better start strong, because otherwise it'll be an uphill battle with that defense. But if they can establish the run from the onset, then this team is going to be able to do some things. But look, Tony, I want to switch from the Washington football team and Pittsburgh, because we haven't talked about the New Orleans Saints. I mentioned a little bit about Seattle because I think they're a team that's coming on. But the New Orleans Saints right now is one of the strongest teams. They've got a running game in Kamari. They've got the passing game. And when they get Drew Brees back, what will they be moving forward? This is one of those solid teams that's well balanced all the way around. And then, like I said, you look on the Seattle side, they're starting to come. And you already know what I feel about Kansas City, is that I still think that they're going to be hard to beat no matter who they play against. And you all know, you and Joe and you, Tony, know that it's according on who's playing the best ball going into the playoffs. And who is that? Is it Pittsburgh? Will they have a hiccup? Will it be Kansas City? Will they have a hiccup? Or who will have a hiccup at this point of the season? And right now, I just think that Seattle, the Saints, Kansas City are the ones that's really playing strong ball.
You know, fans, we only have about 30 seconds left, so we let Donna give her summary. And the one thing we said is don't throw anyone under the bus. She did that, but she threw Ty because she said, Tony, you and Joe, no, she didn't even mention Ty. So Ty, I don't know if that meant
NFL.
You don't know. So Ty, I'm going to say anyway, come on back on the show, man. We enjoyed you being here, and I look for you next week. Joe, later in the season, thank you. I want to see you later. And now, if Washington happens to win, I may want to see you next week.
Hey, Tony, could you ask Joe about the Pepsi commercial? I love that commercial.
Hey,
Coca-Cola.
Hey, Joe, talk to us very quick. Give about 15 seconds. Do you still get people come up to you and talk to you about it?
Yeah, it was. That was a great moment in my life. Before that, I was known as Mean Joe. After the commercial, they started calling me Nice Joe.
All right. So now, Ty and Donna, the next time we have Joe on, we all got to have our jerseys draped over our shoulders the whole show. So now,
Mine is washed too.
What'd you say, Ty?
I'll make sure I have a washed jersey too, because I don't know if that jersey was. Did you wash that jersey when you threw it to that kid, Joe?
It was played. It had played in it.
But all joking aside, I still got my Super Bowl jersey with the dirt on them, so I wouldn't be surprised if he didn't.
That he wasn't giving it back.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you guys for being here. Fans, thank you. And I know this has been an impromptu show, but this has been an impromptu year. This is how we do it. We've been doing it for 36 years, and we'll continue to do it that way. But one thing we always know, without you guys, it's not a good show. So that's why when we say next week, we don't say goodbye. We say in a minute.
In a minute.